Okay, this is a quick and dirty rundown of how to do like chef-based auto-scale groupie things. So the first thing I'm going to show you here is I have a chef server running right here. It's running out of a stack. It says create failed, but it's perfectly okay. There's a little bug in the system that I have, so the callback doesn't work. I'll go over what those callbacks are here in a second. I have the Bastion stack, which I actually don't need anymore. I don't want it. Just helps me SSH in, but ideally we don't want to do any SSHing. So I have a little application called Mars front end. It's just running Nginx, and I'm going to go through how this works. The first thing, I have my chef server set up, chef and chef int on external load balancer, and then just put in Route 53. Ideally we want a little bit more automation around that, but by hand is fine, at least for this demo. So dev bastion is shutting down. Let's see Mars here. So I created a stack. It's a very simple stack. Here's the compressed template. Looks like that. When we use JQ on this thing, we're going to see this. So we have some parameters. We have some resources. I don't really use mappings or for loops or if conditionals or anything. I have the code do that. So our template here has a couple of important parts. One you'll see the cloud formation init here is putting down a DNA file and a client RB and then some other CFN stuff. And then we go down to the user data and it all looks like this. The way we get there is by the code, which is all open source. I don't intend this to be something you can just run. It's more educational. So we look at something like KMS, policy. This is going to be derived from our YAML here. So we have a list of modules, chef client, KMS policy. These types all map to a method on an object, which is just my way of doing some post-processing stuff. So here we can see KMS policy and then key alias. What that does is let's do that. Just lists KMS keys, finds one by the alias that you specified, and then builds IAM policy around that so we can get to it. And then adds KMS key to the parameters. And then adds another one for listing aliases. So we're being really pedantic about how we're building our IAM stuff. So you can see that right on here. EC2 role has some very specific statements allowing access to S3 and KMS keys. So we're not just adding, action star and being very detailed about that kind of stuff. So we have our YAML stuff here, which builds our application. It looks at subnets and grabs subnet information and VPC stuff, and then creates security groups for us. And excuse me. Sorry. All right. And here we look at Mars. I set the auto-scale group to use 4 instances, and we can see those 4 instances now on our chef server. I'm just doing watch knife status, and that's talking to the chef server and looking at stuff here. Okay. So the neat thing that we can do is we'll just sort by this, and we'll just say U3 go away. Now what's happening is a very simple chef process in the background. The DNA file here is kind of my idea of kind of like the DNA of a human being. This is what you are and what you will forever be until I tell you differently. So the content is the run list role Mars FE. And so that just gets populated through. So we can see that here. I'm specifying the run list in sort of a human readable format. I could add more stuff and kind of manipulate this as I want. And then here So R roll. This just gives the run list for this roll. So do some base stuff, do some Nginx default stuff, and then do the recipe that's specific for this piece. So we're just making this into an Nginx server. My cookbook doesn't really have anything all that special in it. So it's not really doing anything. It's just the idea is we want to install something. So we're just going to use Nginx. So as those machines come up, they will join Chef, and what we have here is an encrypted KMS, encrypted validation key. And this is kind of important. We go to our bucket and Chef server DevOps. We look at this validator PEM. It's actually encrypted with KMS and our key and stuff. So only people who have access to that KMS key can access this key, which is handy. We've locked down that access through the CloudFormation template. So it kind of helps get everything nice and tight. So in a minute here, we're going to have 3 new instances come up, and then they're going to join Chef, and they're going to configure themselves and do what I tell them to do. And so that's kind of how this whole workflow works. And you can see the Chef client run here, just adding stuff, doing what it normally does for Nginx things. And it took a few iterations to get this done. So you can see I'm launching Mars FE in version 17. What I do is start with version 0.11 and then just keep iterating. And I had some code work to do here, so I had 17 iterations of this stack and quite a few iterations of the Chef server stack and so on and so forth. So that just allows me to make updates to the stack easily in sort of a siloed mode. So I could launch another one at 18 and it would just be a completely isolated set of things it operates on. Alright, so that instance is starting to come up. What we'll see is 19.155. I haven't seen him on yet, so he'll take a minute to come up. Should be seeing a couple more instances here. Sometimes the autoscale groups can be a little noisy. There's no ELB attached to this particular one. Let's see, now we got 18 coming up. And we'll see it here eventually. You can see the other ones came up. And so, okay, there it goes, 19.155. So there's a new little dude. And this huge number of hours just means that he just started. And when you complete, there we go. And now he's 0 minutes. So that was a successful run. So he's configured, he's at application ready infrastructure, and he's good to go. And so that's a very small example of how to get some automation around things. Chef does a nice job of that because it's agent based. So we can look at our shell script, which is here somewhere. Okay. So the the CFN init here. Okay, here we can see the CFN init, and what it's doing is going out to CloudFormation service and picking up the CFN bits here. So do these files, start these services, you can install packages and do all kinds of stuff. And a lot of people do some bootstrapping here too. It actually gets pretty complicated. Depends on how you want to do this. You could actually replace Chef with most of this stuff. So what I'm doing here is pretty simple, just setting up varlog Chef, installing JQ, which I don't actually need anymore. But you could do a lot of this with an AMI. I'm just kind of showing it off here. This grabs the validation PEM that we need using KMS, so nice and secure, and then run Chef client. At this point, what we're doing is we're having infrastructure pass over to configuration management, and that way they can both kind of play happily with each other. But there's sort of a separation between those two concerns. So As you can see, we got more instances coming up, and there you go.